From cover to cover, she'll find every pearl. Welcome to Jenny Reads the World.
Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny, and today we're going to do our reading wrap for December of 2024. It's officially 2025. Wrapping up 2024, I read 159 books for 60,580 pages. My goal for 2025 is 180 books and 72,000 pages. For those of you doing the math, that's 15 books a month and about 6,000 pages a month. In the month of December, I read 15 books, so right on trend. I did focus, because I hit my reading goal of 150 books pretty early in the month, I did focus on trying to up my page count and read some pretty long books this month. So let's get into it. All right, I'm gonna start with the books that I liked the least and work my way up to the books that I liked the best. So coming in at 1.5 stars is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This is considered a fantasy, probably a romantasy fantasy book. The nurse at one of my doctor's offices told me about this. So anytime, I'm waiting around, I almost always have my Kindle with me, and if I have to wait more than 30 seconds, I will whip the Kindle out and start reading. I also am almost always wearing some sort of bookish shirt. So like I have my Cereal Tea Company shirt on today. Anyway, the shirt is from the ACOTAR series. If by chance you haven't read that yet, you should. At least the first 3 books. I can be prepared to ignore the rest of the series. Anyway, I've gotten off complete tangent. So I'm always either reading or wearing some sort of a bookish shirt. So readers see other readers, and she came over and she told me that this book, To Kill a Kingdom, was the favorite book she had read so far in 2024. So I was kind of hyped for it. And it just did not hit the mark for me. I think a big part of it is that it felt kind of juvenile, and I really struggle with that. I'm not against YA per se, but sometimes it just feels very young. So this follows a high princess of the Sirens. Her name is Lyra, and Lyra is basically just waiting around for her mom, the queen, to pass so that she can take over. And she is kind of cursed that every year on her birthday, she has to go and kill a human and steal his heart, but she is not content to just kill any human. She has to kill a prince. So this year on her birthday, she kind of jumped the gun and went a couple of days early and killed a prince and stole his heart. And her mom, the queen, was angry that Lyra, kind of didn't obey her and do what she was supposed to do. So she gives her the worst punishment imaginable, which is to turn her into a human. While she's a human, she has to go on land and she has to steal the heart of a specific prince without using any of her siren abilities and bring it back to her mother. But now that she is, living amongst the humans, will she be able to continue to kill them? When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker. I really wanted to like this book. I love a good romantasy, throw in some dragons. You guys know I am there for that. This 700-page monstrosity, I was here for it, and I did not like it. So I will be fair and tell you that I did listen to this as an audiobook. And when you listen to something as an audiobook, I feel like the narrator can either really add to your experience or detract from it. And in this case, I'm going to say this is one of the worst I've ever had. So there were 2 narrators, a male and a female narrator, the woman doing the woman's part, the man doing the man's part. And I don't think they did a very good job of coordinating accents and pronunciation. And one of the parts, the woman laid on such a thick, heavy Southern accent that here you are in this high fantasy dragon realm, and now you're in Alabama. And it was very detracting. I also felt like the author was just trying to come up with weird names for things. So for example, she called a bedroom, what'd she call it? A sleep suite. Not even a sleep chamber or something like that. A sleep suite. And it just felt Yeah, you saw the eye roll, right? Like it started to feel like she had her thesaurus open next to her and she was like, what else can I name this? And I know it's fantasy and they're going to come up with weird names for things, but it just felt unnecessary. I kept picturing the scene. Do you guys remember that scene from Friends where Joey has to write a recommendation letter for Chandler and Monica? And he basically just writes the letter out and then replaces every single word with something from the thesaurus to make himself sound smarter. And of course it becomes virtually unreadable. It kind of reminded me of that.
I used a thesaurus.
On every word?
Yep.
All right, what was this sentence originally?
Oh, they are warm, nice people with big hearts.
And that became, they're humid, prepossessing Homo sapiens with full-sized aortic pumps.
Okay, next up is a thriller, The Fury by Alex Michaelides. So Alex Michaelides kind of became the darling of the thriller community a few years ago with his debut novel, The Silent Patient. And if you've been in the reading community for a while, you may recall that the fervor, the hype around this particular book was, I don't relish him having to try and follow that book up. And he didn't do a very good job. To be fair, I didn't really like The Silent Patient either, so it's not fair. But if you look at, the reviews on Goodreads, I'm not alone in this feeling. So this follows a group of friends who have decided that they're going to go and visit the private island that one of them has off the coast of Greece. And they've kind of all got their own agenda for this visit. So there are so many good books out there. I probably wouldn't waste my time on this, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. What Have We Done by Alex Finlay. This is also another thriller. So I know that almost all books have some level of formula to them. I felt like this one was maybe a little too formulaic. Like I just pictured the author having a checkbox, a checklist, and they're going through and like ticking the boxes off, like got it. And it just felt a little too formula for me. So this it begins with a group of orphans who are there all living in a group home. And the very first chapter is them each taking a turn firing a shot. But in the beginning, we don't know at who or at what they're shooting. But the last kid who shoots says, "What have we done?" Fast forward 30 years, and now all of these kids, well, not kids anymore, now all of these adults are being targeted. And the only thing that they seem to have in common between them is this one night and this one event. But theoretically, none of them have told anybody outside of this. So who would be targeting all of them? Who knows what they did? Getting up into our 3 stars. So everything I've talked about before here didn't even make the 3-star mark. So we're now into the 3s. And the first one is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This one is more contemporary romance. And I will say, I probably would have liked this book a lot better if this was the first book I had read with this general premise. But not only is it not the first book with this premise, it's not even the first book by Christina Lauren that I've read with this premise. So I think that kind of hindered it a bit for me. So this follows Anna, and she goes with her fake husband, West. So he is an heir to a billionaire fortune. So they go to this private island. His sister is getting married, and they basically have to go and impress his father. And if his father does not believe that they're really married, then he's going to disinherit him. This reminded me really strongly of a book by Megan Quinn called Bridesmaid for Hire. And Megan Quinn's book was better. It was definitely funnier, for sure. Like there were parts in that one I was laughing out loud. So if I had to pick between the two, I'd read the Megan Quinn book. Next up, The Perfect Couple by Elin Hildebrand. I don't know, are you going to call this a thriller, mystery thriller? I read this mainly because I want to watch the Netflix show, but I haven't watched it yet. So I have read quite a few of Elin Hildebrand's books. This one was the highest rated for me at a 3. I don't know why I keep reading her books. So I probably will not be reading any more of her books. She is just not for me. So this, like many of her books, is set in Nantucket. And it is basically a wealthy family is throwing a wedding on a beach. It's kind of the toast of the season, right? Everybody's coming in for this big main event. The morning of the wedding, the bride goes outside onto the beach and finds that her best friend, the maid of honor, is dead on the beach. So the whole thing turns into, was she murdered? Was this an accident? Was it a suicide? What happened? And kind of untangling the mess that is this whole family and all of their drama. It was okay. Next up is The Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. So this is book 2 of her series called Knock 'Em Out. I dramatically liked the first one better, like so much liked the first one better. This book came in just under 600 pages. You could have cut out 200 of those pages and the book would have been better for it. I didn't really get too attached to any of these characters. I liked the first book so much better. I'm looking forward to reading the third book because I like the characters that it's about. So each book is about a different, like they're all the same group of people, but a different couple in each book is the focus. And I'm interested to read the third couple's story, so I will definitely be continuing with the series. But this one fell pretty flat for me. I've read a lot of her books. I like a lot of her books. This one was not my favorite for sure. Next up is The Striker by Ana Huang. This is another 600-page contemporary romance that could have been cut at least by 100 pages. So I've read quite a few of Ana Huang's books as well. She wrote a series called Twisted, like Twisted Love, Twisted Hate, and I liked most of those books. She really writes some pretty spicy romance, and she writes some more morally gray characters, which, kind of fun to read. This book was just okay. Again, if you had cut out 100 pages of it, I think I would have liked it better. So this follows Asher. Asher is the king of Premier League soccer. He has just been transferred to a new team, and his new teammate is his biggest rival. They hate each other. So the coach has kind of sentenced the two of them in the off season to go and do training with this premier ballerina, not only to improve their soccer skills, but also to learn to work together better. The twist here being that the ballerina is the rival's sister. So very off limits to Asher. Anyway, it was fun, but there was nothing particularly special about this book to me. Okay, now we're kind of moving in. We're moving into the good stuff, guys. All right, next up is Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. This is a thriller and it's official. I am a fan of her books. So this begins with Marin. Marin is an upper middle class woman. She owns her own hair salon and does hair for celebrities. And a few days before Christmas, Marin is in a very busy market shopping with her young child. I think he's 4. And her husband calls her while she's on the phone with him. Her child disappears. The security cameras just show him being led away peacefully. No, he's not fighting or anything, and he's being led away peacefully by somebody dressed in a Santa costume. So the rest of the book turns into the mystery surrounding the child's disappearance and how Marin and her husband go forward dealing with his loss. It was really good and very twisty. You definitely kept you on the edge of your seat waiting to see what was going to happen. Okay, next up is a World War II historical fiction. This is The Book of Lost Names by Kristin Harmel. This was so good. Absolutely 100% recommend this to anybody who likes historical fiction, especially World War II historical fiction. I love historical fiction that stars a female main character in particular. This follows graduate student Eva. Eva is a resident of Paris. She is French born, but her parents are Polish, and she is Jewish. And she has to escape after the Nazis have invaded Paris. She escapes to this small town just near the Swiss border, where she finds that her art skills are of particular value to the resistance in creating forged documents. So she starts working with the resistance to create forged documents to help people get across the border into Switzerland. And the title of the Book of Lost Names is because so many children in particular are being given new identities, and she wants to record who they were originally, what the original names were, and how they correspond to the names that they were given, so that after the war, they may be able to find their families again. These little kids may not even remember what their original names are. So she goes to this extra level of risk to create this Book of Lost Names. It was a really, really good book. Definitely recommend it. Okay, the next group I'm going to talk about is a series of 3. This is The Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, and Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 5, 6, and 7 of the Throne of Glass series. This is an 8-book high fantasy book or series. This is definitely probably more high fantasy than I normally go into, but Sarah J. Maas is such a good writer. So I read the very first Sarah J. Maas book I ever read. Most people start with the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I didn't know what I was doing, so I started with Throne of Glass. And I actually didn't love the first book. Part of it is I later found out she actually started writing this book in high school. Some of the dialogue you can tell, right? In that first book, some of it is like, I am a killer assassin. I will kill you as soon as look at you. Prince Dorian is so cute, tee. And I didn't like that so much. That felt a little juvenile. But by book 2, definitely by book 3, her writing has dramatically matured. And, Selena Sardathian, who is our main queen assassin person, like she's amazing. Vote for her for president. She is my president now. Anyway, I can't really actually tell you too much about the series because this is books 5, 6, and 7, other than to tell you that if you are thinking about jumping into this series, do it. Throne of Glass, Sarah J. Maas. Okay. We have 2 more books to talk about. The Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. This is another World War II historical fiction, but it's actually told in dual timelines. It's set in 1942 in Poland around a Jewish family that is dealing with the occupation of the Nazis in Poland. And then it switches and we're talking in more modern day with our main character, Alice. Alice is a kind of overworked mother. She's got an autistic son who is nonverbal. And now her grandmother, who she's very, very close to, has had a stroke, and she's also no longer able to communicate, but she's very desperate to communicate and tell Alice a story because she knows her time is coming to a close and she wants to tell Alice the story. So it bounces back and forth between these 2 timelines, and they're both excellent. Read this book for sure. Okay, and then my final book. All right, I will start by saying I have never read a Stephen King novel before. This was my first Stephen King book. And in my mind, Stephen King writes horror and he writes like weird off-the-wall science fiction, neither of which I'm particularly interested in. But I kept hearing that this book was really good. It's called 11/22/63, and it is 11/22/63 is the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So this is sci-fi technically, but it is sci-fi that reads like historical fiction. So this follows our main character, Jake. Jake is living in 2011, and he makes good friends with the guy who owns the local diner, who has come and told him, listen, I'm dying, but I have this portal in the basement of my diner that will take you back to 1958, and I need you to go back in time to 1958, live there for 5 years, and stop the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And after, some finagling and discussion, Jake agrees to do this. So he goes back to 1958, he establishes a life, he falls in love, he encounters this incredible resistance because the past does not want to be changed, all leading up to will he or will he not be able to stop the assassination. This book it's a monster. It's 850 pages, and I will be the first to acknowledge that is daunting. But if you are at all interested in, historical fiction, again, it reads like historical fiction. But it reads like it's a guy who's living in the past who knows what's going to happen. It's so well written, so character developed. I want to go back to this. I actually Googled the town that he lives in Texas. Like, is this a real place? I want to go here. It's not, by the way. So I was sad. But I would be going to visit this town if it existed. This book has been living rent-free in my brain since I read it. So it's super good. And here's where I do need your help, readers. I have never read, this is my first Stephen King book. I've never read any of his others. I'm not a fan of horror, right? I think like It and Pet Sematary and stuff like that. Not excited about that. And I'm not into the like super crazy out there sci-fi stuff. What should I read next of Stephen King? Where do I go from here? So fill me in there. Okay, that is my last book of December. And now I'm excited to move forward with 180 books that I want to read in 2025. I have a whole list, and my biggest challenge now is just even where to start with them. So I'm excited to do that. Let me know in the comments, what was your favorite book of 2024, especially in December? And what are you most excited to read in 2025? If you've hung on this long, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
From cover to cover, she'll find every pearl. Welcome to Jenny Reads the World.